Mark Hayes, welcome on to the How to Cut It podcast in the brightest room known to man.
Yes, sorry, this is our studio part of House of Sassoon, but welcome to Soho, London, and our first ever House of Sassoon.
It is an honour to be here, I have to say, and it is my first time coming here in Greek Street. The House of Sassoon. Yeah, Soho. Tell me about this space. What inspired you to be here and when did it happen?
We all know what the world's been through over the past few years. And I think when Debbie Webster, our CEO, and I got together originally, we kind of made a plan that what we loved about the brand Sassoon, and obviously I'm old enough to remember this, a place like Bond Street, Sloane Street, big kind of building, 3 or 4 or even 5 floors. I also worked in Manchester, which was 5 floors. So you had this sense of the team being together in the House of Sassoon. It wasn't called that then, obviously. And I think the concept behind the House of Sassoon is to have the academy team, the salon team, all in one building, and the energy that creates the creative kind of melting pot, if you like, the sharing of ideas, the working together, shared experiences is very, very compelling. You know, it's very powerful. When you walk in the door, you immediately get a sense of you're in the House of Sassoon. It sounds obvious, but so I think that was the idea behind it. And we looked at various locations, and obviously hairdressing is very specific in what it needs. And with Sassoon, we need a big theatre style space. We wanted a studio space, obviously the salon space as well, classrooms, offices. So it was a very specific need. And we found this place after looking at practically every single location in London, just around the end of COVID, which wasn't a brilliant time to open up a new business. But then we found this place, which was formerly Central St. Martin's, and then formerly Condé Nast. And it was just perfect. You know, you just knew there and then that this was the space. So Debbie rather, fought tooth and nail to get it for us. And huge investment, but this is the future of Sassoon. House of Sassoon, everyone working together. And, the environment itself is just a super, super creative, fun, exciting, energetic space.
And Soho in itself kind of represents all of that. It's such a creative space. But the street and the location, it's truly international here, isn't it? Your students come from around the world.
I suppose that, the brand's DNA or the brand's heritage is London. The first salon was Bond Street, and Soho has traditionally always been the sort of centre of London for various different reasons. But again, the vibrancy of the environment, the location, the surrounding streets, the energy at Soho, and the eclecticism of Soho all adds to that creative feeling. Yeah. So it's kind of perfect, and I said to Debbie when we opened a couple of years ago, I said, this doesn't feel like a relocation of the brand. It almost feels like a relaunch of the brand.
But that very much feels kind of Sassoon.
Yeah.
Feels almost a relaunch. Would you, even though it's not a relaunch, it's an evolving journey, but it's like your collections, everything is evolving, but it always goes back to its heritage.
Yeah, I think, that's a very good point. We always evolve, whether it's, the way we deliver education or the way we deliver, service to clients or the collection itself. But we're also evolving, I suppose, in a sense, the philosophy of Sassoon generally. And this is, I suppose, the House of Sassoon is the physical embodiment of the philosophy of Sassoon. It's a big white space. There's lots of feeling of airiness and clean lines and very, very simple styling. So it is like a physical manifestation of what Sassoon is about. And in terms of collections, I think whenever we release something, it's always based around our heritage to a certain extent. Because I think the reason for that is that in order to experiment, in order to kind of play with the brand's house codes, if you like, you have to have something central to experiment around. If you kind of drift into one look and then another look. Exactly. So the core underpins everything else. The core is what we evolve around. And those techniques techniques that we've developed originally and then how they've evolved over, 70 years is still the underpinning of everything. No matter what we do with hair, it's still based around those core principles, which are kind of the rules of freedom. That people think, Sassoon, it's a rules brand. We don't do this, we don't do that, and that's true because I think we've got a very strong methodology behind what we do. But I think the rules that we have are there to allow you to create anything you want to with hair. Like anything you can imagine, anything you can come up with ideas wise, you can achieve that with these, in theory, very simple ideas in hair, very simple design ideas. In practice, very, very hard to achieve without practice and what have you. So I think, although we move on each time, it's still got that unmistakably identifiable Sassoon stamp on it, because that's essentially what we're about.
Oh, well, we're going to come on to the collection that's been showcased here this morning. And,
sure.
It's very much about kind of what you touch upon there, but we can't help but not have an interview without asking you the legacy that Vidal left for you and how that's helping you to shape the vision of Sassoon going forward.
Yeah. Vidal as a hair artist, as a creator, as a disruptor, actually, was without equal still. There's been many that have followed him, but I don't think anyone has achieved what Vidal achieved, which was quite literally to change the way people looked everywhere across the world. I always maintain that if you walk down any street in any civilized city in the world, you will see people wearing their hair that can be traced back to those original techniques. It's become the overarching way to work with hair, which for one man is kind of incredible. For one person to achieve that. And when you think back to what he did when he did, no one else was doing it. No one else was doing what he was doing with hair. So it must have been a tremendously difficult and challenging time to convert all of these people into what, the way he felt people should look. As a man, he was incredibly humble. He never really raised his voice at all. Very, very kind of softly spoken, very knowledgeable, that he obviously did himself. But the main thing, people say to me, oh, did Vidal ever say anything significant to you? Well, my answer always is everything Vidal said was significant because he just had this incredible way of connecting with people. And I think, in the 48 years I've been at Sassoon, I've met obviously thousands of hairdressers from all over the world, different levels of experience, etc. And the really great ones, and what sets them apart isn't necessarily them being super creative or super technical with hair, although obviously they are. What sets them apart is that ability to communicate with another person, whoever it is sat in their chair. And Vidal had that ability. And I think whenever I saw him in action, with press or whatever, standing on stage and talking to a group of people on whatever subject, he was so compelling and magnetic just to listen to his words and the way he sometimes slightly paused to think about what he wanted to say next. And it drew you in, it kind of drew you into what he was talking about. So he was arguably the most charismatic hair person I've ever met, and had the privilege to work with him on a number of occasions. And it was always a learning experience. Whatever it was always a learning experience. And he was quite funny as well, actually. He was a Chelsea supporter.
Oh, okay. I was feeling very fond of Vidal until that moment.
We won't hold that against him. But, we used to go to watch Chelsea play football, and I'd sit with him and we'd have dinner or something before or after. And I'd sit and just ask him about the 5-point. I'm sure he got so bored with it, but and he said to me, why do you want to know about the 5-point? I'm like, it's the most famous haircut in the world. And for me as a, Sassoon person, I just wanted to know how he did it. And he always just used to say, oh, I just layered it.
How obsessed was he?
Totally. I mean, obviously he did hair for 10 years where he changed everything. And then very cleverly, he developed a team of people. Because before that, it was one person, whether it was someone of Paris or someone of Mayfair, it was them. The team thing wasn't that. And what some people don't know is that the first salon that he opened after Bond Street was called Roger at Vidal Sassoon, Roger Thompson.
Roger Thompson, yeah.
Now, how many brand owners would do that now? To call it something else other than his own name. So he was very much about sharing his knowledge. He wanted to upgrade everything about the industry. But I think he celebrated the team, but remained totally involved in hair. The last time I met Vidal, the last time I saw Vidal, shortly before he passed, I was doing an event in Los Angeles. And I always used to call him up, or the guys in LA used to call him up, and he'd come and sit quietly at the back of the room. Not intimidating at all. Stood there on stage cutting hair, and he used to sit at the back of the room and just intently watch you. And yeah, he was into hair right up until his passing. You know, he always wanted to come down and see what we were doing. And the final conversation we had, which was incredibly emotional, he knew he was passing and all that sort of stuff. And he said, never think I underestimate why my name is still in the public consciousness. It's because of what you and the team do every single day. And of course, I was like choked at that. But he absolutely understood that what he'd started, we were only too proud and privileged and honored to carry on. But he was totally in tune with it, even though he didn't cut hair anymore. Totally in tune.
If he was sat here now, and I said to Vidal, I said, what's your take on Mark, other than being a Tottenham fan? What's your take on Mark, and how do you feel he's taken the brand forward?
I think he appreciated I think he appreciated how devoted I was to the brand, which I am. You know, it's the only job I've ever had as an adult. The only other job I've had was a paper round. So I think he would appreciate what I strive to achieve with the brand every single day. You know, I come in here and I know full well the responsibility of being the creative director of Sassoon. I also regard it as a tremendous opportunity, following as I have from Vidal to Roger to Christopher to Tim to me. It's this passing through of experience. And I'm lucky enough to have worked with Vidal, worked obviously with Tim, worked with Christopher, and worked a little bit with Roger. So I'm immersed in the brand in a total sense. And I think Vidal recognized that and saw that. And when I had the opportunity to take over from Tim, he was super supportive. I used to sit with him for ages, it seemed, talking about hair and talking about creativity and direction and how that energy that comes from me has to permeate through the team, but also how it comes back to you. You know, how the whole thing is a reciprocal kind of thing, that the more energy you give to people, the more you get it back. And I think that was one of the keys to Vidal, that he was always on. You know, he was always in touch with what was happening. And I'd like to think that I haven't done too bad. Maybe.
I think you've done very well. And I think that the whole thing, again, you know, what I'm noticing with Sassoon is how it's continually evolving. And we are going to go into Sassoon Connect which we will come on to in a minute. And I really love this whole thing. And also the industry, why we should remain positive about the industry at what can be a difficult time, but there's a lot of positives there. But we've been here today and yeah, we've been seeing the iconic collection Spring Summer 2025. How do you keep reinventing collections? Talk us through that process.
Good question. Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting in the sense that you never really start a collection from any given point. There's always, because you're always continually working on things, you know, you're always working with the team. They're always coming up with something interesting hair-wise. My job really in the collection context is just to catch those moments when someone does something. I'll look at it and it will be a certain angle or a certain color or something. And I'll ask where it came from, what's the idea and everything. And I collect stuff. And that's what I do. I collect it. I mean, all throughout my career, even before I left school, I was always into imagery and music, mainly those two things. Photography has always been a big thing of mine. So I think I'm a collector of images. And luckily the Sassoon team are as well. And they have their own kind of process on that. So really a collection doesn't have a start. I don't sort of think, right, we're launching a collection in October. We better think of a theme. That's not how it works. And there's not a logical progression to it either. It doesn't start and it finishes obviously when we launch it, but it's almost like a continuous organic process of everything happening at once, whether it's color, cut, concept behind clothing, music, everything is happening all at one time. And I suppose if you wanted to break the process down literally, you bring everything into something, like probably too many things, bring them all in, and then start to see how they kind of coalesce together. And then that starts to build a kind of pattern, if you like. So, and then you start reducing it.
Do you ever feel you're having to force it? Or does it come?
No. Force it? No. I think again, because I've been at Sassoon since the mid-70s, and I've always been, as soon as I knew what the creative team did, I knew that's what I wanted to be involved in.
Yeah.
Because they did the coolest hair and, they looked great and everything else. And they were obviously the deal in the salon where I was based. I think I've been around it that long and I've never worked in another hairdressing company at all. So I'm kind of, I can kind of see it as it becomes something. I can kind of feel what's right.
Does that come a little bit as well? I was watching your collection, really fabulous, by the way.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But it's the cultural aspect of it. And, there's thing I always hear in interviews, and I get so tired by the question, how do you get inspired? And they say nature. And for me, it's like all those things that you talk about there. It's the cultural, team. Isn't it?
It's the team. It's the team's interpretation of the Sassoon house codes. Yes.
Do you look on the street side? Do you think it comes from the streets? Where do trends come from?
I think the idea of trend, people, obviously it's something that helps sell magazines or helps, certain things. But I think trends are something that people interpret after the fact. They kind of look, say in the fashion world, they look at however many fashion shows there are in the world and they pick out things that to them look similar or feel similar or whatever. But when you actually speak to the designers themselves, the ideas are as disparate as the number of shows. No one phones each other up beforehand and says, hey, listen, I'm going to do this. Are you going to do that? Okay, great. That's a trend. No one does that. That's all a collection is.
What you're into. As a musician. It's what a musician does, isn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah.
A good musician.
When you really analyze what Vidal did, and Vidal used to say, how did all this happen? 60 years or 65 years or whatever it was after he did what he did with hair. He was amazed at how it still perpetuates because he was just doing what he was into at the time. Famously, he looked around the city. He went to New York. He saw the way cities were changing and people's attitudes were changing. So he just did with hair what he felt suited that particular time. He didn't think in 60 or 70 years time, people will still be talking about this. He just did so that's all we do. So that's what I mean when there's not a start and end point because it's always happening. Sassoon is like a conveyor belt, a continuous stream of creative ideas.
And I sort of see it here in the academy and I see the people that have come and watched the collection. They come from around the world. People are so invested in Sassoon.
Because I think it's unique, isn't it? It's unique. The brand's unique.
Why is it so unique?
Well, because I think it's the start of modern hairdressing. Originally, it changed everything.
Yeah, because up to that point, we were really talking about it was stiff, structured hair, wasn't it? Until Sassoon with the pop.
I think so. In the main, yes, it was, hair couldn't move. Hair shouldn't move. If it moved, you were in trouble. You had to, so it wasn't cut to move freely with the wearer. That was a complete no-no. It had to be stiff and set. And I think when he did what he did, obviously it was polarizing. It was kind of, it disrupted everything. It meant that clients didn't have to come in every couple of weeks, et cetera, et cetera. So he liberated people with their hair, through their hair. And I think that started everything. Everyone's just doing what they're into. That's all we do. And I think back in the day, everyone wanted to learn how this was done, hence the academy. And I think then we taught or still teach so many people from, as you say, from around the world who want to learn how to control hair, make it do what they want it to do without artificially making it look old fashioned. And it takes a lot of skill to be able to cut hair like fabric so that it moves with the wearer in whatever look you're trying to do. Because the techniques are so simple, it can be adapted to any different texture, any different length. As I said earlier, anything you can imagine with hair, you can create with the way that Sassoon, and that's probably...
And colour has to fit around all this as well. Colour's still a big part of it as well, isn't it?
Oh, colour's a massive part.
I mean, we talk about the cuts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if you think about colour, in the 60s, obviously the hair had to be very solid colour because you wanted to see the edge of the hair against the skin. That was the whole thing. In the 70s, the layering and all that sort of stuff happened in the late 70s. So highlighting, breaking up the texture, seeing the movement in the hair was super important. And then obviously in the 80s, with the color explosion of punk, hair had to be the most unnatural colors you could possibly have. But there was also a philosophy behind the way hair was colored in that, you know, the dark and light, different ways that it affects the way you look at stuff. So it wasn't just the philosophy of the cut, although obviously that was the most groundbreaking thing initially. Color came into it to create dimension and depth and tone in the same way that a black and white photograph has depth and tone. You know, that chiaroscuro effect. So color and cut together is very much the way Sassoon worked with hair and the way we work with hair today. Obviously it's changed and we've trained everyone pretty much in the world. So it's important that we continue to reevaluate what we do with hair. And you mentioned the street earlier. Yes, that's important. You have to have one antenna in the salon with the team or the academy with the team, and then one out on the street, the way young people want to express themselves.
You just got to feel it. You've got to feel it when you're on the street. I know sometimes, you know, when you're walking, it's what, when I said, do you force it? I kind of think that's what I meant in some ways is some people just get it.
Yeah.
You know, and you just absorb it.
Yeah.
You absorb it.
I think if you're around it enough, and you're around people who love, whether it's street style or music or fashion or photography or film or theatre or all of those, which, you know, I'm super lucky to work with a whole group of people who do that on a daily basis. And they're also different ages as well. So they'll see something in the 70s, you know, younger kids are obsessed with the 70s at the moment. Now, obviously, I lived through the 70s. So, but they see something new in it. Do you know what I mean? So they bring something different. So it's not just rehashing old ideas. It's completely reworking them in a new way with techniques that we've developed now. So even though it may reference something historical, it's still done in a cool, interesting way. And for, you know, listen, I've seen the 70s and the 80s and everything else. So for me to still be excited by it, by a young kid in the creative team or a future creative team, which we have now, I still get a tremendous thrill when I see something that I think that's an original idea.
Do you see that often?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not every day, but pretty much.
So there is still lots of original things that you can do with hair.
Yeah. I mean, for example, Sylvia, who's one of our top creative people, she described a technique to me called reverse layering. Now, I've been around hair for the best part of 50 years. I didn't have a clue what she was talking about.
What was she talking about?
Reverse layering. It's a way of cutting hair where each individual section is completely disconnected from another, but it creates a one length shape. What Sylvia wanted to create was a technique where you didn't have to point and slice and chop into hair. Cause she's a purist, Sylvia. You know, that's her thing. The way she works with hair is quite phenomenal. And she wanted to create a serrated edge, but without, you know, using the points and the scissors. And I said, okay, you're going to have to show me because and she did this demonstration to me, and I'm watching her cut this haircut, and I had to lift it up myself to see what she meant. So yes, there's always innovation at Sassoon because people are thrilled themselves by doing it, by being part of it, and want to give people the tools, if you like, to be successful themselves. That's what the Academy does, essentially.
Because ultimately, that's what this is all about, isn't it? For people to be inspired, motivated.
Yeah.
To take that back to wherever they are, however they work as a hairdresser.
Yeah. I mean, we've had people literally have been coming here for 40, 50 years.
Continue to keep coming.
And come every year. Every year they come and they say, this is my creative shot in the arm, if you like. I come here for a week and, it costs a lot of money to come and stay in a city like London. It's expensive, but they say, I can't really do this work back in my own country, but I just love doing it.
I love it that we're just going in a natural conversation. I'm just so engrossed, but I've got to ask you.
Yes.
Just touch upon the collection today. Give us an overview to the collection. What you've introduced us to.
Yeah, I suppose, it's the 70 years last year was our celebration of our 70th anniversary. So we released collections that were very much, we kind of didn't go to heritage with the collection last year. I didn't feel. We moved into a very sort of painterly style. This year, I thought, you know what? Year one of the next 70. Why don't we, certainly from a photographic point of view, go right back to where it all began, like the pictures behind me, where it was literally just hair and the model's face, and that was it. So I thought that would be a lovely journey to sort of take. Hair-wise, as I said earlier, the concept, iconic, and the reason it's hyphenated is that it has like a dual meaning. So I, representing, millennials, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, about individuality, about authenticity, about their own personal identity. I think that's a super important part, certainly of youth culture now. People don't want to feel as though, which is why I think trends are not quite the way to go. I don't think people want to feel as though they're following a trend. I think they want to feel as though they're their own individual person, which I think is, super important. So the I in iconic refers to that. Iconic simply means that hopefully the work is based on the iconic imagery, certainly of Sassoon, and the methodology, and showing how that methodology isn't about 60s hair. It's about timeless hair. That's kind of really what it's about.
And for any of our listeners, viewers that want to learn this collection, how do they go about finding to learn about this?
Okay. Well, we run collection courses. So, normally 5 days, but you can pretty much join for 2, 3, whatever you want. So collection courses are where we explain in detail the idea, the philosophy behind it, the methods that we've used to achieve the looks. We deliberately, with the collection itself, the hair, we deliberately try and work with different feelings of hair, different lengths of hair, so that it's more embracing for people to kind of learn from. So it's not all one thing. There's lots of different things in each collection. And so collection courses, and then online, Sassoon online. You can just literally watch one of the techniques. They're about 20 minutes each, the cut and color. And it's just a lovely oasis of creativity in the kind of maelstrom of the world that we live in, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I thought the collection is absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
I love how it crossed so many, the diversity of it as well. And there's also books that you can get the books to see the collection, isn't it?
Yes, yes. We release a collection book once a year.
Yeah, so we'll signpost the listener
thank you.
to that. There is heaps of stuff that I could ask, and we could have a 4-hour conversation if I looked at my notes in front of me. But what I love is how you are really investing in the future of the industry,
absolutely.
And reinvent. And I absolutely love Sassoon Connect. I love what this is all about, but I appreciate probably our listener has no idea about Sassoon Connect. So can you give them an idea what this is and why?
Sassoon Connect was originally developed in Japan a long, long time ago by a Japanese lady who still works for us. And it was a way of connecting Sassoon UK with the Japanese hair community, and in particular, Japanese hairdressing colleges and their students, the teachers and their students. It was a way of inviting the teachers in to get what we call teacher training or instructor training, where we'd help them with demonstration techniques, platforming their work, one-to-one teaching training, all the different teaching styles, if you like, that you need to employ as a teacher. the students would learn the classic techniques when they came here. But then what also happens is that the teachers can then use the ABC techniques in their particular faculty and teach the students those methods of working with hair. So it started in Japan, then it moved into North America, and same process. We go out to the colleges, they come to us, but also they use the ABC methods to train students.
So you will show those teachers the ABC methods.
Yeah. The ABC methods, and also the thought process behind them. Because it's not just, three different ways of cutting hair. It's a whole, it is that, obviously, but it's the way they combine to create modern hair. Yes, you can use them in isolation, but it's a way to create modern hair. So what we're actually trying to do goes right the way back to Vidal's original intention, which was to raise the standard of hairdressing globally. That was his dream, if you like. So in a sense, being part of Sassoon Connect is being as close to Vidal and his wish for the industry, as close to him as you possibly can be.
Yeah, because there is a bit of negative noise around the industry at the moment, Mark.
There always has been. Let's face it.
I say this continually.
But the weird thing is, though,
that there is good to come out of the negativity because it's pushing us forward to keep looking and exploring.
So. Yeah, I think so. I still think, though, there's a public misconception about hairdressing being the industry you go into if you can't do anything else in this country.
I'd love the public to see what I see here.
And I always say to people, but, I'm from Essex originally. From Romford, you can't get more Essex than that. So I've traveled the world. I've been, to Australia, to New Zealand, to America, to Japan, Korea. I've had this I'm having this incredible career with some of the most intelligent, artistic, creative, successful people in the world. When we do the British Hair Award, when we're involved in the British Hair Awards in November, the hotel that hosts that, Jane Lewis Orr told me this, is that there are more self-made millionaires in that room at that one time than any other event they host all year. So what's wrong with being a hairdresser? Only some old-fashioned naff way of thinking about the industry. Now, in Asia, that doesn't exist. In Asia, that mentality doesn't exist as much. Hairdressers
Why do you feel that is the case?
Well, because I think there's a tremendous dedication to the craft in Asia, as in learning. They're probably the bulk of our students at this moment in time come from Korea, primarily Korea, China, Japan.
Some exciting stuff coming out of the Far East, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it's
incredible.
And when you think about it, if you don't educate yourself, and this is their mentality, if you don't educate yourself, you not only stand still, you actually goes backwards because everyone else is moving forwards. And the mentality of Asian people is to become successful, whether it's financially, creatively, or both, which hairdressing obviously can do. So I think there's the difference in the way people view the industry internally and also externally. I think people don't have the same negative view of our industry. I mean, yes, we've heard about the VAT thing here recently, which, you're dealing with a government, don't want to get political here, but you're dealing with a government who historically over the years don't really care about individuals. They care about power. Although I always remember this story, Andrew Collins told me the story, which I think is brilliant. He had to do Margaret Thatcher's hair once for this thing she was doing. Her hairdresser wasn't around. And when he'd finished it, she said, "Please don't tell my hairdresser." And this is the woman who, invaded the Falklands.
Is that right?
But she didn't want to upset her hairdresser. So there aren't that many industries in the world where you're in physical contact with another person. No. And I think it's such an incredible, incredible industry that if we just got over this stigmatized view of it, so many the young kids here, the assistants we have, the future creative team, everyone on the Sassoon Connect program know the value of what they're doing. They know the value. I just think collectively there are certain things that we could do to raise the profile of the industry even further collectively. I think there are certain...
So Sassoon Connect is certainly helping.
Sassoon Connect is absolutely about that.
Is this for just colleges? Is this schools, salons? Who's it for?
It's primarily for colleges and students, yeah, because I think to give young people to see what hairdressing actually can be, with no disrespect to colleges at all. But I think when they have an international house that comes into to the building and describes to them not only what they can do with their hands, but what they can do with their career, it's very eye-opening.
I've seen you link in with West Sussex
Yep,
College. You're very, very progressive.
Yeah.
What sort of feedback have you had from them with this?
I think the thing with that is they want to be as good as they possibly can be for the students and for their teachers, So I think it's been super positive. It's relatively new in this country, Sassoon Connect.
Yeah. I mean, we're an international podcast, but predominantly still UK.
Yeah.
So if a college is listening to this and they're thinking, this sounds really good, is this available to all colleges, and how do they get part of this?
Well, first and foremost, they have to contact us here. Tina Robinson, who's our global sales manager, who's actually in charge of all of the education that Sassoon do. If you get in touch with her, tina.robinson@sassoonglobal.com, or on the website, I think you can contact us through the website as well. It's open to everyone who wants excellence in education, which I think is everybody. No one wants to educate poorly, do they? Do you know what I mean? But maybe sometimes they don't have the resources in isolation to do everything that they possibly could do. And that's, as I say, that's when we started in Japan with Schoolship, and now with School Connect in Korea, in North America, and most recently in the UK. We are trying our very best to continue the legacy that Vidal wanted, which is to inspire young people to come into the industry, show them what the industry offers, what it can be.
Love it.
And then give them the tools to go as far as they want.
I couldn't think of a better grounding for these students.
It's almost our responsibility.
And for the teachers, lecturers, call them what they want. They've got to be passionate about this, and it's reconnecting passion, isn't it? And the beautiful, and the thing that you say, and what always comes through, is the craft, and the craft is so important. We've got to show the new apprentices.
Teaching is a very, very hard, whether it's teaching hair or any other form of teaching. Teaching's very hard because you're giving the whole time.
Yeah.
You're giving the whole time to people, and you need to refuel, get inspiration yourself to help you forwards. And I think Sassoon Connect, and every form of education, but in particular Sassoon Connect with college lecturers and teachers, etc.
Oh, awesome.
I think helps them. And if we can do that in any small means or bigger enterprise.
Oh, well, I'm going to be banging the drum for this. Absolutely. What's your lasting message about Sassoon Connect?
Okay. Sassoon Connect. Really, we're supporting the teachers to recruit and retain students. There's a number of issues that surrounding hairdressing colleges right now. Most of them begin with the B word, unfortunately, but that always comes into it. So we're trying to help recruit, retain, and then obviously helping the teachers as well to help them excel as well, so that they can send out educated, communicative hairdressers that can become their own Vidal Sassoon.
And that's important for the college, isn't it? Because they've got to keep their students. You've got to attract students. So you've got to give the best, haven't you?
You have to show what the industry can be. What it can be, because it's not just about doing one client after another. It can lead you anywhere you want, all over the world, as a highly successful, financially sound business.
Yeah, because there's an investment that a school's got to put into this. But that's got to be, I guess what you get back in return, if you could keep students all the way through their training with your college. Again, just remind us how they get in touch with yourselves.
Okay, either through the website, Sassoon website, or with Tina, our sales manager, who's spearheading this whole program.
Yeah.
Not just in the UK, North America and the Far East too.
Yeah. So again, we'll put Tina's email into
Tina's the key.
The show notes, and then, contact Tina. Just coming towards the end. Internationally, you're on the road with Sassoon. Is that something that you are doing?
If I'm not in Soho, I am, at the end of this month, I'm in Korea. doing an event over there for a few days. Then I come back. Then it's Japan, doing a whole tour of Japan. In between that, we'll be creating obviously the collection for Salon International Weekend. Then I'm going to Budapest, and then I might have a little holiday somewhere in there as well.
I'll tell you what, that lad from Essex done all right, hasn't he? It's been okay, hasn't it? It's been a journey.
It's been an amazing journey so far. And, there's always going to be exciting news coming out of Sassoon, whatever season, whatever collection, whatever. We are absolutely passionate about driving the industry, driving Sassoon forward, and in turn helping the industry.
I feel like it's entering a new phase.
I think you might be right.
You feel it. And I like, wrap up question then, Mark. Leave us with a lasting thought. What is the most important takeaway you want us to remember about the future of hairdressing education and Sassoon's role in it?
Well, I think the future of hair education is about technique, because without that, you can't make hair do what you want it to do. But it's also about communication. Communication is so powerful and so compelling that I think, going back to the Sassoon Connect program, it's a way of showing young people how great they can be in the industry. Communication is the most powerful thing.
Amen.
You can do.
Agreed.
I think the more you're around creative people, inspiring, but find yourself a mentor. I know this is more than one thing, but find yourself a mentor that inspires you, that can take you on. I'm lucky. I've had the most amazing mentors, Christopher Brooker, Roger Thompson, Vidal, Annie Humphreys.
It's not a bad list, is it?
Goodness me. So I think don't limit yourself at all. The industry is there for you to grab with both hands and do what you want with it. If you care enough, you have to care about it. And B, if you can communicate with another person, whether they're sitting in your chair or sitting in the audience, on any platform in the world, develop your communication skills, because that will take you in places you've never even dreamed of yet.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's an absolute joy.
My pleasure.
Talking to you.
Come again.
I would love to come again, because I say there's just a zillion and one questions I could just ask you off the top of my head, in truth.
Bless
it's
you.
an honour and it's a privilege, and thank you for having me here today and giving us your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.